Hey folks, it's Nick. I am in studio with Brian Meisenbacher from Earth Grower LLC, and today we're talking about when your planning is bad, but your seed selection is genius. And basically, it's what to start thinking about in November and especially what to grow. November for me is a very critical month in that it gives you the opportunity to do a lot of strategic planning for the spring. Now, we're already into crops like kale and radishes, and maybe you're starting some successions of lettuce and your carrots, spinach, and Swiss chard. We've talked about that in the September and October planting videos, and you're going to basically continue that along with some carrots at this time of year. But I want to talk about 3 varieties that we haven't discussed, just so you know, if you want like a full 1-hour version of this November and why it's so critical, we are releasing an audio-only version on our podcast station, Bootstrap Farmer Radio, and you can find that on Apple and Google Play. But Brian, what I want to talk to you about is 3 crops that you've done a lot of in your consulting and building farms throughout the country, and some work in different areas around the world as well. So the first one would be garlic, and that we can plant that now for a nice spring crop. And basically garlic, onions, we're discussing why this is a good time to plant this time of year, and then we'll get into some quick bean crops that you can harvest both now and throughout the winter. So garlic this time of year, why is it one of your favorites?
Garlic is one of my favorites this time of year because it's something we can get in now that we can definitely overwinter into the spring. It's low maintenance as well as the colder months come along. It's something that mulching is encouraged, so it's a low water crop that we can get in now that can be ready, early summer, late spring. Garlic is really great for that.
And it's also, we discussed in one of our IPM videos that we've shot this week that it's great for repelling pests. And even though this time of year there is a reduction in pest pressure, there's always the threat of a warm spell or at least something still being around and hovering about.
Yeah, and getting it established now means that you'll reap some of those pest management benefits even through the early spring from it being present in the garden now and established by then. So that is a good point. So yeah, garlic is a really great thing to be overwintering, a low maintenance crop to carry through the winter, allow you to have something to harvest late spring, early summer.
And it's one of those cash crops that's pretty much always in demand, no matter where you're cooking at or the type of style. You're going to need garlic in some form or fashion. And I think it also lends itself to some added value products. Like if we did a soft neck, for instance, it's easily braided. And that's kind of something that you could get more money for in addition to like a hard neck, which typically you wouldn't braid and just sell the cloves.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of people are making like garlic salts and things like that as well.
Let's go into onions before we do beans. And I kind of want to differentiate between, is the leek in the onion family, and then there's, the green onion types of small bulbs versus some of the other onions that we might take a look at. What frameworks can you have people picture in their minds if they're trying to decide what onion varieties to plant this time of year?
Yeah, so, leek is in the onion family. It's a cousin of the onion. Those tend to be a longer day variety, especially to get that long white root on there, which is generally what you're looking for with a leek. A lot of the time, people will plant leeks and they won't, the white part of the leek won't necessarily be as long as they would like. That's definitely encouraged for people who traditionally really eat a lot of leeks in their diet, people who are French.
But it's likely to be too late in the season for that because of the length of daylight this time of year.
Yeah, I would say so. But because if you're planning on overwintering them, you could definitely do long day varieties of onions. You could do leek this time of year if you're planning on harvesting it down the road. And, with the amount of day length, for sure, things are growing slower. So you can definitely do longer day onion varieties this time of year, knowing that it's going to take some time to harvest them. And they're low maintenance over the winter. Also, mulching is encouraged because you won't need to water as much through the winter.
So what about beans? And I'm looking at this from 2 areas. Is there something we can plant or a variety that we can plant now that we can still retain a harvest through late into the winter time? And are there varieties that we can plant now to kind of overwinter to get an early jump start on the spring?
Yeah, so varieties like fava beans can take pretty cold environment. They can take down into the 20s, some of them, depending on the variety that you use. And that's certainly something that you could overwinter. They'll germinate at about 36 degrees, which is pretty cold. If you're in a warmer environment, you could entertain still things like snow peas and things like that, even peas.
Which is a very prolific crop. People will be able to pull off it for quite some time.
For sure. But that's really more of a warmer environment. When you're in a colder environment, this is where, things like fava beans, they really shine. Generally speaking, more of your, cooking bean varieties that are a harder bean that need to be cooked. You're harvesting or finishing up harvesting a lot of that stuff right now. Another thing, if you do have that greenhouse space or that propagation space, you could be considering doing pea microgreens is a really great way of growing out your legumes, but not necessarily harvesting them for beans. But you're still getting a lot of that same nutritional profile. That is a very marketable, high-value crop. If you have the space to carry through microgreens through the winter, is a really great option. I really encourage farmers to have that kind of space because that can really be a driver of revenues through some of these colder months.
Perfect. Well, again, folks, these are some quick tips. Remember, take a look around at your farm. If there's any repairs to be done before the frost sets in, this is the time to do it. If you're going to be needing frost blanket, this is the time to probably get that ordered. And if you are doing some very specific chores on your farm that you think might help other folks, please comment down below and share that with everybody else. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Brian, thanks for coming. I'm very excited about having Brian here, everybody, and please take a look at some of that stuff that we have. We have a lot of stuff coming out that we're covering all this week at the first of the year, and we'll see you next time.